The plot of Hades 2 continues one of the great stories of Greek mythology, the succession myth, including the War of the Titans. Now before I go any further, I'll clarify that there will be no spoilers for the story of Hades 2 in this video. We're just going to discuss the mythological events that lead up to the beginning of the game. I think this story will provide some valuable context for the events that you're going to see take place during the game. So with that, we'll start from the beginning. Of the universe, that is. In the beginning, there was chaos. No, not that kind, this kind. Well, both, kind of. This is a common theme in Greek mythology where these primordial deities are both humanoid beings and physical places and things. You'll see. Chaos created Gaia, the literal earth on which we stand. Gaia would go on to give birth to Uranos, the sky, Uria, the mountains, and Pontus, the sea. Gaia and her son Uranos then had 18 children. Yes, incest is pretty pervasive in Greek mythology, or any creation myth for that matter, since you only have so many parents to work with. Anyway, first they had the 12 Titans, Chronos being the youngest and, quote, most terrible. After the Titans came the Cyclopes, and then the Hecatoncheires, also known as the 100-handers because it's way easier to say. Disgusted by his latter children, Uranos hid and imprisoned the Cyclopes and 100-handers somewhere inside Gaia. Gaia, furious and seemingly unable to locate or free them, urged the Titans to punish their father. Chronos was the only one willing to do so. Gaia created an adamantine sickle, which she gave to Chronos, and he used the sickle to castrate Uranos, solidifying his downfall as ruler of the cosmos and Kronos' succession to the throne. This seems like a good time to take a quick break and remind everyone that when it comes to Greek mythology, we're talking about stories that were passed down through the generations for thousands of years, mostly orally. As a result, there is no single canonical version of these stories. Have you ever heard the same story from two of your older relatives about events that took place in their youth? Their versions are never even close. Multiply that effect by a few million times and you can quickly see how you get a lot of variation. Only a few versions of these myths were written down, and fewer still survived long enough for us to read them in modern times. For the purposes of this video, I'm trying to stick to the version Supergiant has decided to implement in the Hades games, but even then, it's not all spelled out explicitly. Much of this material is pulled from ancient sources where there are hints in the games that these events are canon to the lore, but still, there's lots of room for interpretation, and there are conflicting versions of these myths from different sources and times, so if you look up these stories online, you might find other variations. And you might find different interpretations of what versions are canonical to the Hades the Game universe. With all that said, what comes next is somewhat controversial. I'll start with a version more aligned with mythology, and then we'll talk about some alternative interpretations. Anyway, back to our story then. Now, Chronos is ruler of the cosmos alongside his wife and sister, Rhea. For mortals, this is a golden age during which peace and harmony prevail, and the earth provides food in abundance. However, Gaia and Uranos warn Chronos that someday he would be overthrown by one of his children, just as he overthrew his father. To prevent that from happening, Chronos does what any of us would do. He swallows his children whole as soon as they're born. And so he swallows Hades first, and then Poseidon. You may have seen this famous Goya painting that depicts it being a bit more violent than that, but most classical accounts are that he swallowed them whole, which becomes important later. Anyway, their mother Rhea is pretty unhappy about this, so when she gives birth to Zeus, she hides him away and tricks Chronos into eating a rock wrapped in baby's clothes instead. Zeus is raised in secret, and when he is grown, he sets out to, you'll never guess, overthrow his father, Chronos. Gaia, whose allegiances seem to be very flexible, flips on Chronos by mysteriously aiding Zeus in causing Chronos to throw up his brothers Hades and Poseidon. It turns out they survived because they're immortal. I'll stop there to circle back to an alternative interpretation that I've read online. Some folks argue that the child swallowing is not canon to Hades the game. Instead, in this universe, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus are all raised in Chronos' household and ultimately decide to overthrow him because he is mean. I don't really like this interpretation too much because it undercuts the motivation to overthrow Chronos, but I've included it for completion's sake. Either way, having built a coalition of allies, including his brothers Hades and Poseidon, his cousins Demeter, Hestia, and Hera, and his uncles the Cyclopes, Zeus launches a war against the Titans. If you've ever heard the phrase Battle of the Titans, this is where it comes from. The war lasts for 10 years. Ultimately, the Titans are defeated, torn to shreds, and the pieces are thrown deep into the depths of Tartarus. And so, the new era of the gods is ushered in. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades draw lots to see who gets dominion over what. Zeus gets the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades, having drawn the short straw, gets the underworld. And of course, Zeus, being the organizer of this whole coup, gets to be the king. But wait, ever-fickle Gaia decides that she is angry at Zeus and the gods for dismembering the Titans, who are her children. So in a fit of rage, she mates with Tartarus itself and bears the most fearsome child yet, Typhon. A monster so enormous that his head brushed the stars, complete with snake heads and dragon heads and fire and everything. In a battle of lightning and fire, Zeus slays the monster. I think I saw this one painted on the side of a van. Anyway, after his victory, Zeus hurls Mount Etna on top of Typhon, imprisoning him beneath it. And now the new era of the gods is ushered in. During this era is when the events of Hades 1 take place. I won't rehash it in detail here, but roughly speaking, Hades 1 is a telling of the Persephone myth. Zagreus, son of Hades and Persephone, seeks out his mother despite his father's vehement objections. He goes on to find her on the surface, learns why she left, and why Hades forbade him from seeking her, and eventually convinces her to return to the House of Hades to take her rightful place as queen of the underworld. Hades 2 picks up sometime after that, and this isn't spoiling anything that isn't in the marketing materials, but in Hades 2 you play as Melinoe, the second child of Hades and Persephone, and sister to Zagreus. Shortly after Melinoe was born, Cronus launched an assault on the House of Hades, having somehow stitched himself back together apparently. Hades 2 opens with Melinoe having grown up and trained her whole life for one singular mission.
Death to Chronos.